Hey everyone, welcome back to the EdTech Sales Playbook podcast / YouTube channel. If you're new here, this is for veterans. This is for people trying to crack into EdTech sales. This is anyone that has to do with EdTech. Really good stuff that we have here today with Luke Voorhies as our guest. We're going to talk about how to get buy-in from all stakeholders in the deal as you're navigating that sales process. We're also going to talk about how important it is to work with co-ops and consortiums to your advantage, finding key influencers in your territory. Luke's awesome. I worked with him for about a year at an EdTech company. He's been in sales for a total about 9 years now. He wasn't planning to go into sales as he was younger, but he realized that he really loves solving challenges and problems that people had. Tune in for the episode. It's going to be a good one. Hopefully you guys enjoy. So I think the first one that you brought up, and correct me if I'm wrong, you're talking about getting a yes from every stakeholder in the party, right? Like not just the teacher, but the admin. Maybe the admin is superintendent and curriculum director. Tell me about that.
Yeah. So, I mean, in a lot of my ed tech experience, it kind of started with the teacher, and I don't want to say the bottom level, but like the user level, the end user of the tool or the curriculum or whatever it is. And they are on the ground. So I think it's really important to have them be excited about it, because if they're not, it's not going to get used. But B, if they're excited about it, you have them on your side to take it to the district. And then the district is obviously, concerned about how their students are learning, what they're using to learn, but they're mostly concerned about like test scores and stuff. So they want to make sure that students are meeting or exceeding test scores, because that's their funding's based on.
Yes.
And so if you can help them see that the resources that you're selling, that you're providing, are going to benefit their teachers by helping them have a healthier, a balance in their classroom, giving them tools that make their jobs a little bit easier, and helping their students learn more effectively and be able to provide and perform, I guess, on the state exams. Then it's a no-brainer. Like it makes so much more sense for them to actually purchase a resource.
I couldn't agree more. Like my conversations, when I'm talking to a teacher, it's based around saving time, more resources just to make their lives easier. But the topics in that conversation sounds way different than a superintendent, because a superintendent might care about, hey, can these students, in my case and what I sell, can these students pass the state testing so that they can exit the program? He doesn't care because he's not in the classroom, so he won't care as much as like, hey, does this help me with scaffolding? Does this help me like save me time so I don't have to work over the weekend? I'm curious. So like when you were at StuCamp and we talked about the simulation that we sold with social media marketing, what did that conversation sound like maybe to a professor or a teacher versus like a principal or a superintendent? What are the differences there? Do you recall?
Yeah. So like I was kind of part of the team that like started high school sales at StuCamp. And so in the beginning it was, and most of my experience is K-12 focused. So, keep that in mind. But in the beginning it was, hey, we have a really cool resource. It's for career and tech education. We think that, your students can learn valuable skills like at this age, so that when they leave high school, they can go and get jobs with this. But it was like a very limited trial of the product. And so it was, we have resources in place for you that are pre-built, they're simulated, so your students get some, real world experience. And that, I think that was really appealing to teachers. And at the same time, because it was coming from, Stu, the founder of StuCamp, is a marketing guy. And so he had real life experience with it. And so I think that just the caliber of resource was really high. And that was really exciting for teachers. And so 100%. Getting in kind of with that free trial made it really easy to get that buy-in from the teacher level. And then when you take it to the district, it's less of because it's not a core subject in a lot of places. It's less of a, this is great for your state test. It's more of this is great to prepare your students for the real world. Like them having this simulated experience is going to increase your college acceptance rates. It's going to help these students get, clubs started at school. It's going to help your students go to DECA ICDC or, BPA or whatever extracurriculars they're participating in, because that also looks good on the district. If you have 30 kids go to, nationals for one of these competitions, then you can kind of get funding from business people in the community who are like, oh, wow, this is a really good program for that. I'd love to, help further that and support these kids. And so that was kind of the main difference in the conversation. It was less like, well, I mean, for teachers, it's still exciting for them to take kids to, Florida, because who doesn't want to go to Florida in April? Yeah. But yeah, it was just cool to see the different perspectives there.
From not just from your student experience, but just overall EdTech experience. Have you had an experience where maybe you got a yes from the superintendent and then a no from the teacher for some reason? Do you recall any moments like that?
Yeah, I mean, at SUCANT, actually, so I was kind of over Texas, and there were some districts in Texas that were really big on CTE, and others where their focus was not there yet. Yeah. And so they had pretty progressive superintendents or district, curriculum leaders who were excited about providing more of those opportunities for students, but the teachers, already had 6 different classes and a prep period for each, and so they didn't want to learn a new resource. And I get that. Like teachers are already so busy. So going back to the previous point, I think it's super important to kind of position it as a resource that will save time and will make their lives a little bit easier. But I didn't quite understand that. So I did get no's from the teachers, even though the district had signed off.
It's kind of funny because like the decision maker is saying yes, but then you're having the actual users say no. And as a salesman and like a sales rep, it's music to my ears to hear a superintendent or a principal say, yes, like we love it. Let's get it to our teachers. And then when the teachers see it and you get shot down, oh man, that sucks so bad. Right.
Yeah.
And then vice versa, right? You have the scenario where the teacher loves it and then they go up for funding and it gets rejected. And that sucks too. So my question for you is, how do you prepare your champion, someone that loves your product in EdTech? How do you prepare that champion to present to the decision maker? What kind of tools are you giving them?
Ooh, good question. I think the trial thing was a really big deal, having students provide some results and giving, the teacher some ammo to go into that conversation with. But at the same time, that's a good question. Really, I just wanted to present myself as a resource, because I don't want to say that teachers aren't capable, but their profession is not sales. And so I would position myself as a resource to go to the district with them and hand in hand kind of say, I have a desire to do this as the teacher, but I don't have all the details. So here are all the details. And that's kind of where I would come in.
Okay. You brought up such a good point. Teachers aren't salesmen. And it sucks when you have an awesome champion and then the champion goes to Luke and says, hey, Luke, I love this program. It's $150 per student. And that's all they say. And you're like, whoa, whoa, whoa. You didn't show them this.
You didn't so much more.
You didn't show them this. And it sucks so bad. So yeah, 100%. If you can tag along with that prospect, right, and set up a meeting, I think that's the number one way. If they reject that, give me your thoughts on this. But what I typically do is I say, hey, I'm going to send you an email. There's going to be some research, because admin love research, right? Mm-hmm. There's going to be some overviews, really quick 5-minute overviews of the product. And then I'll provide some pricing that maybe we talked about. Sometimes I even hold off on the pricing because I don't want them to see that and then shut it down. Mm-hmm. But I want to build curiosity and then validation around the follow-up. If my champion is saying, no, let's hold off on meeting with them, like I can talk to them, because that often happens too. What are your thoughts on that process?
So sometimes, I mean, I would have teachers that would take it to the district and the district would shut it down. But I knew that they were still really interested. And so in those cases, if you have, a district with 9 or 10 high schools, you can kind of say, well, why don't we pitch this to your principal who does have a little bit more of a budget in place, and not a huge, it's not the district budget, but they've got some money to spend on your CTE programs. And so kind of taking it to the principal and having almost like a middle layer there as kind of a pilot program for the district. And that was something that was pretty successful for me. And then, eventually that you see the pilot succeed. And so you kind of expand into districts. But usually, I mean, just giving them as much information in as concise a format as I can is what I want. Because I don't want them to have to sell the resource. I want them to be able to give it to the district and have them evaluate for themselves, and then come back to me with any questions.
So one of the ways that I kind of build a really strong case around this is mentioning to the champion, hey, don't forget that the co-op or the consortium recommends this program, because that is some really strong language. And that can really sway a decision maker when they're on the fence about it. So I've been lucky enough to find some of those influencers, some co-op leads, consortium leads, and kind of help me with those, those deals with the districts. I know you're super experienced with something like that. I think it was Texas. You tell me that story. I think you have an awesome story behind that.
I love a co-op. And so in Texas, it was more kind of district focused, but in Arkansas, the way that the CTE kind of regions are divided up is by co-op. And because they have so many small high schools, or small districts, 2 middle schools, 1 high school, they kind of band together as a co-op to form, a faux district. But the district folks or the co-op folks were the people that were meeting at conferences. And at the time I was doing, I don't know, 20, 25 conferences a year. And so I'd see a lot of these people several times, and they had experience with the tool. And so they, like you said, they were absolutely kind of the champion, the driving force behind getting some of that approval and some of that budget, and saying, yes, this is what they say it is. It really is as cool as they're presenting it to you as. And from there, the districts kind of give their approval, and then they can kind of bundle together for, group pricing or whatever it is. But starting, at the teacher and then the co-op and then kind of bringing it back to the district was the flow there, I guess, and how that worked best for me.
So right now I have a co-op lead that I work with. She has been amazing, super proactive about kind of backing what we have. My only struggle is coming up with creative ways for her to almost advertise the program to her teachers and her districts. And I think she would do anything that we might ask her to, that she feels comfortable with communicating with the districts. What are some of those things that you think this person or, any leads of the co-op can do to kind of push out the program, whether it's like an announcement email or like a virtual session they can set up? Like, what's your experience with that?
Honestly, I kind of offered myself to do most of the legwork, which is probably not the smartest way to go about it. But like at the co-op, yes, they work at the co-op, but a lot of the time that's not like a paid position. It's like a volunteer thing that they do on top of their day job. And so I would just kind of be, it's almost like when you ask for a recommendation letter, like you just write the letter and then you say, hey, read this over and sign it. And so I would essentially say, this is what it is. If you give me your approval and let me use your name and say, hey, Michelle has agreed to this, then I'll take it back to your schools and send it their way. And that way, they can check with you, but I'll do the work for you. And so again, probably not the most efficient route to take, but that I was at a point in my career where that's, kind of what I saw work. And so what I kept doing.
Yeah, no. And it's cool when you do establish that really strong relationship with a co-op lead, because all of a sudden they almost become like your BDR, right? You're shoulder to shoulder, like you're not above them, they're not above you, but they really start promoting your brand. And for me, like once a week, I get an email saying, "Hey, Nick, this is so and so. They want to learn about, XYZ. Can you set up a time with her?" And all of a sudden, like she's teeing up all these meetings for me, and I'm not doing so much of that legwork about reaching
Mhm.
out and saying, "Hey, we're working with your co-op. Your co-op recommends it." I'm not having to do nearly as much as that. Would you
Yeah,
right? That
for
happens?
sure,
Yeah.
for sure. And I mean, teachers, and specifically in CTE, they're such a I mean, I don't want to say that they're a close knit group, but they talk to each other because
Right.
it is kind of a niche community. And so once you get one of those co-ops in and using and enjoying the resource, they
Right.
start to talk to teachers because they go to these, education conferences. They have mandated professional development hours. And so when
Yep.
they go to these sessions and they say, "Hey, well, we use this resource," other teachers are going to say, "Wait, who is that? And can you put me in touch?" And then all of a sudden you get those contact emails. And on the same note, the co-op folks are also talking. So you're kind of having conversations on two different fronts. But they're kind of the same conversations that are just happening in different rooms.
Oh, yeah. So with co-ops too, um, I feel like it's so important to recognize that they want to help out their members and their
Hmm.
teachers. So they're in a position where that they want to be a resource for their teachers and members. So they end up pushing products that really help. So like if you can position yourself as, hey, this would help your teachers so much, they would go to you as a resource, if you had something like this. I mean, that should be music to co-ops ears, right?
Hmm.
For example, like the co-op that I work with, it's access prep. It's the state testing for multilingual learners. A lot of teachers don't have access prep. So the way that she phrases it to her teachers is says, "Hey, Nick has access prep that he wants to share with people." And now all of a sudden she's become a resource for her teachers and the members of the co-op. And that's ultimately, I think, what they're wanting to do, because that secures their role as the lead at the
Hmm.
consortium when budgets are tight. And that just it helps them be a like a thought leader, right? Or a voice. We want to put these people on pedestals. So yeah, that man, I love what you got. So the third topic I want to cover, and we'll wrap it up with this, teaching and understanding requirements for the state when you're having those conversations. Tell me more about that. How did that help you close deals?
Yeah. So I mean, even with a lot of kind of non-core classes, they still have TEKs, or they still have state requirements that they have to meet. And just with a little bit of digging, you can find all of that information on state education websites. You can find that information posted to some district websites, but that is their guiding light. That's the path that they have to follow. Um, and for teachers that are kind of invested in following those rules, it's really, and especially with like AI tools these days, you can say, "This is the resource that I have. We
Yep.
do access prep, for example. Which of these 10 standards does that best align with?"
Mm,
And then you can take that to the teachers and say, "Hey, look, we can help cover," and I worked with Texas a lot, so it's TEKs still in my head, but we cover TEKs, and I actually think they've gone away from TEKs and into STAR. So I could be outdated here. Um, but we cover TEKs 1 through 6, each point in each of those, and we'll give your students some, real world experience that they can put on their resume. Uh, and just kind of, again, doing that legwork, but it's not really all that much effort because they're posted publicly. They're easy to find. Um, and if you can help the teachers see that it aligns with their teaching standards, that makes it easier to get it to the principal, who says, "Oh, yeah, this is a resource that's already aligned with what we should be doing," which makes it much easier to go to the district and the superintendent, because you're tapped in, and they know that that's kind of what you already need to be teaching to. And if a resource helps meet those standards, then you're on the dot.
you're speaking their language, and all of a sudden
Hmm.
you become an expert in the space, right?
Exactly.
And you become a consultant and not a sales rep. And that's how you sell. It
Hmm.
truly, that's how you sell, is when you sit there as a consultant and you're not giving off commission breath. you're not trying to close a deal. Like, you are just trying to help them meet requirements, and this
Mhm.
is your product. And if you can communicate and align the product features to state requirements, I mean, it's simple. It's
It's
simple.
hard to say no. Exactly.
Yes, it doesn't make sense if you can do that, it doesn't make sense for them to say no, and if they do, right, that's when you do some more discovery, like, "Hey, what's going on? It looks like it's a good fit, but there has to be something else on your mind," right? But yeah, man, I totally agree. You learn verbiage, um, you gain instant experience just reading the requirements. It's like you've been in the role for years now, and again, all of a sudden, you become an expert to them. So,
And I mean, state to state, so many of the standards are, sure, they're in a different order, but the standards are pretty much exactly the same.
yeah.
And so once you've kind of done the work for, one region, one state, one territory, you have the same case to present everywhere else that you cover. Um, and exactly that, you've positioned yourself as an expert. And then again, because it's such a tight knit community, because teachers do talk, I mean, they have dozens of forums where they just exchange, resources that they use, and there are Reddit threads about it and stuff. So they say, yeah, we use this company, DM me and I'll send you my contact information. And then all of a sudden you start getting more of those emails from teachers who say, hey, I've heard about your product. I want to know more. Can we meet? And then, like you said, you kind of have your own team of BDRs essentially who are just sending references and leads your way.
Let me share with you something I'm doing, and I wanna get your thoughts, and you can be completely honest. So, I deal a lot with the access test. Again, it's for multilinguals. They have to pass in order to exit the program and not be considered multilingual. So I went in and I checked out this test, and I didn't take it because we're not able to take it, but you can kinda see how it's laid out and, the structure of it. And what that helped me do is in demos, I can say, your student, when they hop on the access test, they're seeing a bunch of stuff. They're seeing this, they're seeing that, and this is overwhelming. And I get a lot of head nods from like the teacher because I think they know now that I understand what it looks like, what the students are feeling. And now it validates like, oh, okay, this guy knows, right? This guy knows what he's talking about. Have you ever taken an approach like that? Like, what do you think about that process?
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of lucky in that I came from a school that was really big. Like my high school experience, I was involved in DECA and these other organizations, and so like I had some of that student side experience, and being able to say, "Hey, your students are going to have to do this role play. They're going to have to make this presentation, and they're going to have to, answer 90 questions on this test so that they can advance in this competition." Uh, and being able to say, had I had a resource like this as a student, that would have made a huge difference. And I think, I mean, in your case, being a multilingual student, and having that lived experience, it makes a huge difference. And then knowing what the other side looks like and being
Mhm.
able to say, as a student, this is what I saw, but as a professional, this is how it's benefited me. Or, when you were talking, I instantly thought about some of the SAT prep stuff that I did. Like those classes were, this is the concept, this is what the question will look like. And it might not be, you know, Nico bought 95 watermelons for $6 a pop, and there were 2 watermelons left on the shelf, which,
Right.
blah, blah, blah. A train comes from A to B. But the question will look very similar. And so
Yep.
you have that context that you can kind of present to them and align it with their lived experience and with their students' lived experience. So I love that. I think that that's exactly the approach that you should take.
Awesome. Dude, Luke, you've been awesome, man. I seriously, dude, your experience, although it was a little bit ago, you speak to it like you're doing it right now. So
It
hats off
was
to you.
it was a fun
Thank
time.
you.
And one thing that I mean, you kind of alluded to this earlier, but one thing that I loved about ed tech is that it's mission driven.
Mhm.
You're genuinely helping people in their day-to-day lives. And, you know, even better, you're helping young people better their futures. Um, and that's so rewarding, to have a teacher purchase a tool and then next year have them come back at renewal time and say, yes, this is my favorite unit of the year. Absolutely, I'm in 100%. And I've actually pitched the other 3 schools in the district so that they can come along as well, because I know that their students will benefit. And then going to conferences and seeing, the schools that you work with come up to you and say, hey, we have, for example, one of the schools that we worked with in San Antonio, they had like 18 kids go to DECA ICDC one year, which was wild. And so it's just cool to see actual success. And as an adult now, school years feels so short. So it feels like I get to see it regularly, which is really nice.
I've never sold a product that I could see like the difference so quickly made versus like a product, like I used to be in home care and I used to sell like data tools and surveys. You could never see the result of that. We would always talk about it from other case studies, but like specifically from my like prospects and the deals that I closed, I never heard of like a success story. And maybe that was on me. I don't know. But I never really like built a good success story off one of my clients, which was so sad. It wasn't fulfilling at all. Like here, I've been in a closing role for not that long, here at Flashlight, and just today, like I was on a call and she's like, Nick, that was the coolest experience for some of my kids. Like they finally got to hear themselves and listen to themselves, and they know what they sound like. And oh my gosh, that was instant gratification, and it happens so quick. I don't think you find that. Like very bold statement here. I don't think you find that in other industries when you're selling stuff. Like reviews, businesses. Sorry guys, like if you're a sales rep selling reviews, hats off to you. That's not my gig, but that's just kind of my opinion, right?
Yeah, and I mean, like I'd agree. I'd say almost every other industry, you're trying to benefit, another company's stakeholders or shareholders or their board, which is fine. Making value for an organization there's nothing wrong with that. But students are sponges. And so you see that, you see them absorb that information so much more quickly and have results to give back. And so it is very gratifying industry to be in.
If you enjoyed that episode, please follow the podcast, turn on notifications for the podcast, for the YouTube channel. There's going to be more episodes, more awesome, I guess, just like Luke. So stay tuned.